ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतान शृण्वन्नोतिभिस्सीदसादनम्। ॐ श्री महागणपतये नमः। ॐ हंसाय विद्महे परमहंसाय धीमहि तन्नो हंसः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः त्रैरङ्गैः सुष्ठुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। हरिः ॐ। कीर्तन।
श्री गणराया जय गणराया,
श्री गणराया जय गणराया,
श्री गणराया जय गणराया,
श्री गणराया जय गणराया,
श्री गणराया जय गणराया, गणपति बाप्पा मोरया।
श्री गणराया जय गणराया, गणपति बाप्पा मोरया।
श्री गणराया जय गणराया,
श्री गणराया जय गणराया,
श्री गणराया जय गणराया, गणपति बाप्पा मोरया।
श्री गणराया जय गणराया, गणपति बाप्पा मोरया।
Namaskar everyone and welcome to the Hindu Prachaar Kendra's Sunday morning Satsang live as usual here at our Sri Ram Vijay Mandir located at Jalibia Trace, Raghunanan Road in Enterprise Central, Trinidad. Welcome all of you joining us virtually and those of you who are here in person, fewer persons in person here this morning, but welcome all of you. So it's always a joy, I say this every week, to be in your company in Satsang. It's always so special and we all feel so wonderful coming together like this. And our week, of course, started in a very auspicious and blessed way, beautifully with Mahashivratri, and we hope the entire week was a blessed one for all of you. Remember our 3 words, keep the bhav. So keep the bhav going and growing stronger and stronger. Of course, for us here at home in Trinidad and Tobago, now there's some relief and ease with restrictions, but still continue to be careful and look after yourselves. There are certain guidelines we still have to follow, so don't lapse and falter with your well-being, and we'll continue to follow all the required guidelines here in our mandir as well. On a sad note though, we are seeing how life continues to be very tough for many persons, for many families, very tough and trying in different ways. And you know, it's certainly easier to fill an empty stomach, as many of us have been doing to support each other through food drives and other forms of goodwill over the last couple of years. But when the heart is broken and there's emotional fatigue and distress, we all feel a sense of helplessness. And many have been going through such experiences with the death of loved ones because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and no death is less painful than the other for loved ones. So I'm not discounting anyone's experience of grief. But that incident with the 4 divers who lost their lives, well, someone said to me this week while she was speaking, she said, Geeta ji, as a wife and as a mother, it hatin me kareja. You know, it's so painful. And how traumatic it is and how wounded we all feel for all those families. It can really be overwhelming. So today, before we do anything further in our satsang, I want to ask all of you, from wherever you are joining us, let us pray in one dynamic collective voice and send the most powerful healing and loving vibrations to those who are affected in one way or the other. And of course, we also send our energies to those who are facing the tyranny and the suffering in the war-riddled zones of our world. Let's surrender ourselves to the Divine Mother as we chant mantra, praising her and asking for her grace and her blessing. We are praying to that Mother who brings all auspiciousness and who fulfills the desire of those who come to her for shelter. O Divine Mother, save us, protect us, empower us, and make us strong. Let us chant together. Om Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Trayambike Gauri Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute. Boliye Jagadambe Mata Ki Jai. Hara Hara Mahadev. So now to the rest of our satsang. What do we have planned today? There's a lot to share, so we'll be moving along at a pace. In just 2 days' time, it will be International Women's Day. Well, in our Hindu world, Vishalaji, every day is supposed to be Women's Day. We come from a civilization that holds womanhood in such high esteem as Devi, absolute divinity, worthy of our highest worship. So it can be quite alarming to learn of and to witness, to see how such an honorable and noble position has changed and been diluted over time for whatever the various number of reasons. And we won't be getting into that too much this morning. We'll see what evolves as we look at Rani Mandodari in our Katha. You know, as I was thinking of what to focus on for Prachaar and for Katha this morning that's pertinent to the plight of women, I thought we haven't really looked at Rani Mandodari, and her life is so exemplary, but living in Ravan's shadow, as it were, we can easily overlook how special a woman Rani Mandodari was. So we will do that for Prachaar, and then towards the end of Satsang, I'll share with you a special project that we have been working on. It's an e-book titled Sita, the Warrior Princess Toward a New Smriti. But before we get into all of that, first our bhajan and chanting session. And it's all about the Divine Mother today, all about women folk. The first two kirtans are actually very easy to chant and sing along, so you can listen, engage yourselves, clap, join with us, keep the bhav, build the energies as we praise Divine Mother. Ambika, Jagad Ambika is the refrain. All glory to the Mother of the Universe. So Prashantaji is reading us.
Ambika Jagadambika Sharada Jagadambika
Ambika Jagadambika Sharada Jagadambika
Ambika Jagadambika Sharada Jagadambika
Ambika Jagadambika Sharada Jagadambika
Mahishasuramardini Ambika Jagadambika
Mahishasuramardini Ambika Jagadambika
Chandamundamardini Ambika Jagadambika
Chandamundamardini Ambika Jagadambika
Simhasuramardini
Sharada Jagadambika,
Sharada Jagadambika,
Sharada Jagadambika,
Sharada Jagadambika,
Sharada Jagadambika.
बोलिए जगदम्बे माता की जय हर हर महादेव. And we continue praising Jagadambika, Jagadambe. In this kirtan, we are chanting Jai, Jai, Jai over and over again. We chant victory of the Divine Mother, and we praise some of her manifestations as Mata Saraswati, Bhavani, Mahalakshmi Mata, Mahakali, and so on. So continue, keep in the bhav and join with us. Krishna ji is leading.
Sagamādhani sani dani damagamaga dani sama. Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Mata Saraswati Jagadambe, Hamsavahini 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 Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Mata Bhavani Jagadambe, Simhavahini 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 Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Mata Lakshmi Jagadambe, Shubhapradayini 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 Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadambe, Jai Jagadanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadanbe, Jai Jagadanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagajanani Jagadambe.
Jai Jagadanani
Jai Jagadani Jagadambe.
बोलिए जगदम्बे माता की जय हर हर महादेव. And for one more kirtan, we keep that bhav, we keep that energy going and growing as we continue to pray for ourselves, as we ask the grace and the blessing of the Divine Mother for all those who are helpless and affected by some tragedy, illness, and so on. Whatever it is, oh Divine Mother, we praise you, we worship you, we surrender before you. This next kirtan will actually come up on screen because it's a newer one that I think we are doing for the first time in our Satsang. I'm not sure if we've sung it before. So you can follow along with us there on the screen, the lyrics, but you can also listen. The words are not too complicated. And this starts with the Bij mantra for Divine Mother, Dum, Dum, Dum Dum Durga. So do join with us. Vishalaji is leading.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Durgati Nashini Durmati Bhedini.
Durgati Nashini Durmati Bhedini.
Dushtani Shodini Durgamba.
Dushtani Shodini Durgamba.
Ravi Shatabhasini Rajani Charashini.
Ravi Shatabhashini Rajani Charashini.
Rakasutoshini Lalitamba.
Raktasitoshini Lalitamba.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Ganapati Toshini Ganashatamodini.
Ganapati Toshini Ganashatamodini.
Gandavilepini Durgamba.
Gandhavilepini Durgamba.
Pavana Rupini Papani Shodini.
Pavana Rupini Pavani Shodini.
Palaya Pavani Lalitamba.
Palaya Pavani Lalitamba.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Himagiri Vasini Hita Shatadayini.
Himagiri Vasini Hita Shatadayani.
Harihara Karini Durgamba.
Harihara Karini Durgamba.
Guruvara Rupini Durita Vishoshini.
Guruvara Rupini Durita Vishoshini.
Sachidanande Lalitamba.
Sachidanande Lalitamba.
Sachidanande Durgamba.
Sachidanande Durgamba.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Dum 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 Durga.
Dum 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 Durga.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Lam 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 Lalita.
Boliye Durga Mata ki Jai. Har Har Mahadev. So just about halfway through Satsang, we always, we remind you, half the time for the chanting, bhajans and so on, and the next half for our Prachaar, Katha, for messages, for sharing. So some of you would have received a little message, a post from me, asking you to share a quick line, short line, on anything you know or anything you would like to share or that you can think about with regards to Rani Mandodari. And I send this message around to persons of different ages and backgrounds, just trying to assess what you all really know about Rani Mandodari. Now, I was pleasantly surprised. I got some short responses and some longer ones, but I was really pleased, very surprised by the responses, which was so reassuring. So I want to share a quick list with you. I just took out parts of some of the messages that were sent. So let's see the list that many of you would have submitted. She was a dutiful and beautiful wife of Ravan. This was the most common answer, that she was the wife of Ravan. She was a noble lady. She was very intelligent. She stood up for what is right. She was the daughter of Mayasura. She was a diplomat. She was a dedicated mother. She was not false. She was very sincere. She was very caring and sensitive to the plight of others. And I think my favorite of all the submissions, just as she was very beautiful on the outside, she was equally beautiful on the inside. And when I read all these responses and I was compiling them, I was thinking, I don't need to do this Katha because everyone knows so much. But you have made my sharing this morning quite easier because your feedback gives such an appropriate and solid foundation on which we can build our Katha and our sharing this morning. So about Rani Mandodari, different Ramayanas give different versions and details of her birth, of her previous existence before she was Mandodari, about her life and marriage. Many different versions are there. So her name, Mandodari, Mand Udari, the one who has a tender belly or very soft, slender waist. I wish I could be called Mandodari right now, many of us. So Rani Mandodari. So very graceful, very gentle, very beautiful to look at. Now, about her parents, from the union of Maya and Asura king, who was known for his architectural genius. Her father, Mayasur, had actually built a palace for the Pandavas during their exile in the forest, and they were even gifted weapons made by him. You know, sometimes we forget how very skilled and scholarly these Rakshasas and these Asuras were. So from Maya and a fair, like her mother Hema, 3 children were born. I want you to see this. First 2 sons, Mayavi and Dundubhi. 2 sons were born first. But the parents, they were saddened that they did not have a daughter. Imagine that. So to get the blessing of a daughter, Hema, she did intense penance to Bhagwan Shiva, and she worshipped Bhagwan Shiva for a long time so that she could have a daughter, she and Mayasur. Now, very few and far between in any tapas, in any of our kathas, will you find such action for getting a daughter. Most of the times it will be for what? Yes, Ranjanji, who is helping us with the dholak this morning, to get a son. All right? And that for me is one of the, when we read about her life, it's so beautiful because she came as a special blessing. She was born out of great tapas. So let us see her. When we meet her, well, in the Ramcharitmanas, we actually meet Mandodari in the company of Ravana when he enters the Ashok Vatika. But in Valmiki Ramayana, we meet her before. And I want us to see this, where Valmiki ji in Ramayana she's described as extremely beautiful. So much so that when Hanuman Baba goes to Lanka and he starts his search for Sita Mata, when he enters Ravan's palace and he starts searching. He mistakes Mandodari for Sita Devi. Mukta mani samayuktair bhushanaihi suvibhushitam gaurim kanakavarna bhumishtam antaha purishwaram. When he saw her, Mandodari, she was well adorned, so beautiful jewels. But not just the jewels were shining. Her radiance in that space, in the palace where they were, in that room, her radiance lit up the room, and she was unlike any of the other women who were there. See how she's described. Charu Rupinim. Charu means very beautiful, very attractive. Tarkayamasa Siteti Rupa Yauvana Sampara. Harshena Mahata Yukto Nananda Hari Yutapaha Asputayam Asa Chuchumba Pucham Nananda Chikrida Jagau Jagam. Very beautiful, this last line. You'll see. So when Hanuman Baba, he was, thinking someone this beautiful, so radiant, so spectacular, it must be Sita Devi indeed. And he thought, I have now started searching and I have found her. This is going to be what? A very short search. So what happened? It's written here, Chuchumba, Pucham, Nananda, Chikrida, Jagao, Jagam. He started clapping. When you get excited, he started clapping. He started skipping around, jumping around. He squealed in delight. He was so happy. And Pucham. Pucham means what? His tail. He took his tail and he started kissing the tail. He was so happy to have found Sita Mata. But of course, after that thrill was over, he started reasoning that it couldn't be Sita, because her pain of separation from Sri Rama, one, she will not be in a space like this. She will not be enjoying comforts, and she will not be in the company of other males, and she will not be so bedecked. So I wanted to point this out. Such was Mandodari's appearance, aura, and beauty that even Hanuman Baba was mistaken when he saw her. So let us meet her for the first time in the Ramcharitmanas, a scene that we all know very well, those of us who follow Ramayana Katha, and that I think is all of us who are go to Ram Leela, participate and so on. We know this Ashoka Bhatika scene very well. Join with us as we chant the Chaupai, as we meet Mandodari for the first time in the Ramcharitmanas. Jai Ram Shri Ram Jaya Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama Sita Jai Mama Krita Apamana Krita Apamana Kati Hauta Matira Katin Hakripana Katin Hakripana Bolo Jaya Ram Shri Ram Jaya Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama Sunata Pachana Muni Maran Dhava Maran Dhava Maya Kalya Kahi Niti Budhava Niti Budhava Bolo Jaya Ram Shri Ram Jaya Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama Jaya Ram Shri Ram Jaya Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama Boliye Siyapati Ramchandra ki Jai. Jai Shri Ram. I hope where you are, I remind you all the time, the Jai card, you should chant it powerfully and lovingly so that you get all these powerful vibrations in your lives and in your homes, your spaces. So one more time. Boliye Siyapati Ramchandra ki Jai. Jai Shri Ram. So we are meeting her. I'm not going through all the details of this. scene that we know very well where Sita is being held in the Ashok Vatika after being kidnapped by Ravana. And he is now coming to try to convince her to become his queen. So in these few lines I am sharing, he goes there and he starts speaking to her. He tries in many ways to woo her. Ravan says, and then Sita Mata, she responds, holding the blade of grass. And she speaks bravely. She's empowered. She's unafraid. And she tells Ravan about all the things that he has done wrong. And she tells him about the path of destruction that is going to take place. Ravan, of course, feels very insulted. So he says to Sita, you have insulted me. Sita tai mama krita apamana. Katihau tavasira katina kripana. So I will cut off your head with my sword if you do not obey my command. Now I want to read these 4 lines that I selected and sung just now. And I want you to listen because we are looking at Rani Mandodari this morning. We can't look at her without, of course, also having to look at Sita a bit and also at Ravan. So this verse is about Rani Mandodari's action. So tell me, where do you hear her name? Sita tai mama krita apamana katihau tava sira katinha kripana sunata bachana puni marana dhava maya tanaya kahi niti bujhava. Did you hear Rani Mandodari's name? Well, I can't see those of you at home, but the few of you who are here. Did you hear Rani Mandodari's name? Okay. So she isn't called Mandodari, Vishalaji, in this verse. She was called, how interesting, and when our great sant poets and those who have gifted us and composed and compiled our shastras, they don't write or use any word by accident. So her name here is Maya Tanaya, the daughter of, who was her father? Mayasur. So, as if to point out from where Mandodari has come. She has come from what? Asura, Rakshas-like condition and upbringing. Now take everything in context. Okay, remember, anytime we are sharing, context is important because many of our kathas, can be interpreted in various ways. So as if to point out from where she has come, Asura roots, Rakshas roots. But look at her. She has lifted herself. Like a reminder, who has she become? She has moved away from the Asuric, Rakshasic influences. And who is her husband? Maharakshasa himself. Big influence. She reminds herself, I must lift my legacy. I must advance, take it forward in the best of ways. And we dialogue about this always at the Kendra. So this act, Mandodari's act of stopping Ravana, when he raises the Chandrahas, we were looking for that photograph, we just couldn't find the perfect one. Holding the Chandrahas, Mandodari's hand stops him. She grabs it and she holds him so that he will not strike at Sita. He was just threatening Sita. This is not something, we hear it so many times, but I want you to understand how magnificent Mandodari's action was. Because just before this, you listen to this, you as a person, whether male or female, man or woman, right? What did Ravana say? Kaha Ravanu sunu sumukhi sayani Mandodari adi sabarani. In trying to convince Sita, Mandodari is right there, right? But what does he say to Sita? In front of Mandodari, she's right there, he says to Sita, listen, oh beautiful and wise lady, I will make Mandodari and all the other queens your servants. Well, if I was Mandodari, and I think if you were Mandodari, were you going to grab the hand, Prashantaji? See that? For her to reach out like that, it takes a special kind of quality, you know. And I wrote here, Ravan is speaking, what kind of man? So insensitive. But Mandodari, what kind of woman? So sensitive, so caring, so conscious that she could what? Reach out to protect another woman. So Sita's, this is very poor raising. It's so wonderful, and we can easily miss all of these levels that are there. So Sita's insults, they pierced Ravan's ego as she refused his advances, and we know that he lunged forward to attack her, and Mandodari stops him. So see this? Do you know of any time where he ever raised his hand for Mandodari? He raised his hand for Sita, whatever the circumstances, but for Rani Mandodari, he never raised his hand. And we can't get into all of this. We have only 25 minutes or so. Now it is said, of course, he was equally in awe of Sita's beauty and her bravery as he was of his own queen, but he couldn't deal with the puncturing of his ego. So we see Mandodari, she does everything in her power to save not just her husband, not just her family, not just her lineage, but she also reaches out in such a situation to support another. So she reasoned with him that killing a defenseless woman, hurting her, abusing her, it is a heinous crime, especially for a king of his stature and repute. So let's see her again in another episode that we know very well. This is Tulsidas Baba writing again. Join with us. Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Rahati Kari Pati Pagalagi, Holi Bachan Neeti Rasa Pagi, Rahati Chori Karapati Pagalagi, Holi Bachan Neeti Rasa Pagi. Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Kanta karasa hari sana pariharahu, or kaha ati hit hi adharahu. Kanta karasa hari sana pariharahu, or kaha ati hit hi adharahu. Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama. Mandodari hridaya kar chinta, bhayau kanda par vidhi viparita. Mandodari hridaya kar chinta, bhayau kanda par vidhi viparita. Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram, Jai 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 Ram, Jai Jai Rama. बोलिए सियापति रामचंद्र की जय. Jai Shri Ram. So here we see her name, Mandodari. It comes in this line. So Rani Mandodari, of course, she's a queen. So she has her own staff. of helpers and administrators and so on. So they were reporting to her about what the citizens of Lanka were saying. And what were they saying? What were they thinking and reasoning? What were they worried about? Hanuman had just left. And what was one of the last things he did before leaving Lanka? Burnt fire. He had burnt Lanka. So many things he did, right? So the citizens were deeply disturbed. And they were thinking, what were they thinking? If the messenger was so powerful, what will happen when the master comes to the city? What will be our situation? So this was the concern brought to Mandodari, and she also became deeply disturbed. Adhika akulani. She was very worried. Now to address the concern and to be very, of course, you think Ravan didn't know this? Ravan knew all of this. He also has his own staff and they would be reporting to him. But Mandodari, see how beautifully she responds. The first word, rahasi, privately, quietly, secretly, so as not to embarrass Ravan. So as not to make him feel bad, she took him aside and she decided and she started to speak. When we have to say something, when we have to counsel, when we have to advise, where we do it, how we speak, all of this, it is so very important. This is why someone, I think they said she was a diplomat, very diplomatic, very strategic in how she approached every situation, the 3-4 times that we meet her in these kathas. So she says to him, and this was her nature, she's not pretentious at all. Calmly and lovingly, she offers Ravana good counsel to get him to change his ways. Her manner of speaking, very balanced and very informed. Niti rasa pagi. The situation was already quite charged and volatile. So she says, my Lord, how she speaks to him. Listen to my words and take my advice for your own welfare, for all of us, for our well-being, for the well-being of Lanka. Call one of your ministers and send Sita. If you don't want to go, send Sita. And in one version she says, even I will go and take her, but avoid enmity with that prince. And see, the poetry also, when she speaks, it tells how scholarly she was and how creative her mind was. She says, Sita will be the curse of our kula, like a cold night will be to a bed of beautiful lotuses. What will happen? The coldness will what? They'll all wither and die. So beautiful. What is Ravan's response? Asakahi bihasi tahi udalai chaleu sabha mamata dhikai. He laughs. I should have one of the persons who plays Ravan is here, but I don't have the Ravan laugh, that? Laughs, I thought, what are you worried about? My wife, like this speaking, laughs, But even how Ravan responds, there's so much to learn from Ravan also. We must not forget this. So he laughs and then he embraces Mandodari. Did you all know that in the Katha? Prashantaji, he embraces Mandodari and he says, how ridiculous that the wife of Ravan should think like this and should be afraid. And then what does he say? Sabhaya subhau nari karasacha. By nature, women are timid and weak. That was his feeling. That was his feeling. Ravan's belief was that the women are weaker. And that was his downfall. Krishna, stop shaking your head on the left-hand side there. Yes. So, you see, there's a Santvani, the oral tradition, that says it was Sita who killed Ravan. Ranjanji? It was Sita who killed Ravan because long before he was physically slain, His ego, his emotion was already slaughtered by the voice of a woman holding a blade of grass as her protection. Sita Shakti, yes, Sita Shakti had slain him emotionally. You know, so powerful. So Mandodari was very troubled because like Sita Devi, she could see the impending doom of Ravana. Did she give up? When we meet her again, you know, every time we meet Mandodari, she's what? Trying to get Ravana to mend his ways, to change his course of action. So we see her again, right? I'm just chanting this for saving the time. Mandodari sunyo prabhuayo kautukahi patodhi badhayo karagahi patihi bhavan nija ani boli parama manohar bani Charana nai siru anchalu rupa sunahu bachana piya parihari kupa. So when she heard that Sri Rama had what? The bridge was built and he had bridged the ocean and they were coming very soon. She took Ravan by the hand. You know, sometimes a little dular, I suppose, Shantaji. If you want something and from your mommy or your daddy, you go in here and what? How these young boys laughing so? Go and what? You hold the hand, you know? Kind of dular, in a loving way. Come now. It's like this. So she took her, see, Mando, it's so fast, so beautiful. She took Ravan by the hand. And this time, she took him to her own palace, because they'll all have, remember how the space to be set up, she had her own space, her own palace as well. And she spoke to him very sweet words. And when you see this, some of the images are there. She took her and palu like this. And she put it on the ground before him and she's by his feet. And she starts to talk to him, you know, in such a gesture of respect and love to try to convince him. And again she says, listen to my words without getting angry. Now even this, we must not mistake any of her actions for weakness. It is testimony of how much of a mother, how much of a wife, how much of an administrator she was. She was so concerned for the well-being of those in her charge. Of course, on the flip side too, we often see how living with the hope of change is very dangerous for many women in our world, and they end up losing their lives. But Mandodari's life was not in danger, because Ravan loved her. So she was the one person who was safest around him. So in all of these three encounters, we see a most beautiful, dedicated woman, conscious of all the issues around her, serving and trying to change things in the best of ways. As much as Ravan didn't like it or appreciate it, did he raise his hand? Did he hit her? I'm only seeing the few heads here going like this. Did he abuse her? No. And you know, there are many layers and levels of these kathas. I think what it's trying to teach us and tell us is very obvious. I don't need to get into all of the detail. But in closing this morning, I'll just say these two lines for International Women's Day, which is in 2 days, and why we are sharing this katha and having a preview of our book this morning. As women, let us what? Learn from Mandodari and lift other women. Of course, this goes without saying that we have to what? Lift ourselves first. We have seen Mandodari's life, her own transition. And man, well, anytime you raise your hand, I could make a pichakari with this actually. Anytime you raise your hand and hit a woman, well, what? You is? What? Who are you? Ravan? You're not Ravan. You're worse than Ravan. Because Ravan never did it. You're not even as good as Ravan. You're worse than Ravan. Because he never did it. You know, it's a beautiful quote of Swami Vivekananda, you know. If the condition of, just trying to remind it because it just came to mind, if the condition of a woman are not improved, world welfare will not be achieved because it's not possible for a bird to fly with one wing. Very beautiful quotation. And I want to read this from an article that was shared with me by Dr. Pradeep Bhattacharya, who wrote in the Pancha Kanya of India's epic. This is what epics. He writes about Rani Mandodari. She is not boxed into a single narrative. Like the other four Kanyas, we're going to chant the mantra just now. She is the epitome of chastity and purity and is punished for no fault of hers. She loses husbands, sons, kith and kin in the great war with Rama, knowing all along that the curse of a virtuous woman can ruin the most powerful man. Mandodari, like the woman she represents, perhaps hides anger and anguish in her heart as she lives a life of duality. The surface made turbulent by varied experiences and a deep, silent core in her soul where wisdom originates. She has the inherent gift of distinguishing right from wrong, and in a crisis, she knows how to insist on doing what is right. This is why Mandodari is there in the Pancha Kanya mantra, which I'll ask them to bring up on the screen because we will chant it. Now, Kanya. We know Kanya, what, from Kanya Kumari Puja. Okay, the girls before reaching puberty, when they are considered to be the purest, the most innocent, the most beautiful, the best. Okay, 5 women here are called Pancha Kanyas, and we worship them as Devi, and this is a mantra that's supposed to be part of our regular chanting. They are given this title of Kanya, they're not called Stri or Nari or Sati. Because of how they lived, they are venerated as ideal, and I thought, what an honor. You know, it's so unbelievable. Our Hindu world is just so amazing when it is well understood that women like them. Who are these women? Ahalya, Draupadi, Sita, Tara, and Mandodari. When we remember them for their exemplary lives, may their blessing be with us so that the greatest of errors can be destroyed. So please chant with me. You can read the words along. I hope it's up on the screen. We chant together. Or say after me. Let's say it together. Repeat. Ahalya, Draupadi, Sita, Tara, Mandodari, Katha, Pancha Kanya, Smare Nityam, Maha, Pataka, Nashanam. Okay, so the great Pataka, all the wrongdoings, sins, errors, Nashanam, they'll be destroyed. Smare Nityam, when we remember them. Bole Siyapati Ramachandra ki Jai. Jai Shri Ram. And I encourage you, of course, to read more on this Queen Extraordinaire, Rani Mandodari. So I want to take a few minutes because we do have this project that's a work in progress. In any event, we go until about an hour and 15 minutes, so we have some time before we go to Aarti to share this project with you. I know we are having some difficulty with the book and the pages that we want to bring up. I'll see how the technicians will manage. But this book it started off as a simple idea to compile verses, quotations from our vast Hindu literature, shastras, even what has been shared by gurus and well-known quotations on what our dharma says about how women should be treated, how women should be honored, and how they should be respected. So we started compiling with the hope that we will share it for International Women's Day. But the response was so overwhelming, we started getting responses and submissions from all over the world. As the post went out, we were sharing on WhatsApp, and so we need a little more time to put this whole book together, this e-book called Sita, the Warrior Princess Toward a New Smriti. So you can look out for the formal launch, a special launch for Navaratri, which is our time when we worship and honor women. But I just want very quickly to read a few of the quotations that we got so that you will understand that they from Atharva Ved, Hitopadesh, Ramayana, Ramcharitmanas, some from their own personal writings as well, very beautiful. So from Atharva Ved, this was submitted from Guyana by Dr. Vindhya Vasini Prasad. O woman, may you be filled with splendor and be powerful like a rock. By the grace of Savita, may you gain the brilliance of the sun and have a long and prosperous life that benefits all. This is actually Rani Mandodari from Atharva Ved. This is Dr. Vindhya Vasini Prasad. Then Dr. Gauri Shankar Gupta, former Ambassador High Commissioner to India from Hitopadesh. There is no better support than that of mother. There is no better direction than that of mother. There is no better protection than that of mother. And therefore, mother is the dearest of all. From Dr. Om Prakash Gupta in Houston, Texas, president of the Sri Ramcharita Bhavan. Friends, prosperity, grains, food, etc. have a great respect in the world, but the place of a mother and one's motherland is greater, is above heaven. And this is one we quote often here at Kendra, Janani Janmabhumischa, from the Valmiki Ramayana. From Devi Mahatmya, was submitted from Mauritius, Avatar Rajveer, from the Arya Yuvak Sangha. The incomparable radiance that was born from God, from all divinities, and pervaded the three worlds, came to one place and took the form of a woman. Then, from Mauritius again, Dr. Pavitranand Ram Hota. This is from Atharva Ved. In the same way as the great ocean receives the waters of the rivers in its water world, so may you, O bride, so this is in the wedding, having stepped across the threshold of your husband's home, live therein like a queen. So this is why in the home, the woman is Maha Lakshmi. From Guyana, Pandita Dhanraji Hemraj. This is from the Manusmriti. A father protects a daughter in her childhood. A husband protects her in her youth, while her children protect her in her retirement. A woman should not be left alone. May we always protect them. Our own Hindu Women's Organization here in Trinidad, from the Rig Veda, O scholarly woman, the way a river breaks away the mightiest of hills and rocks, the scholarly woman destroys myths and hypes through her intellect alone. May we bow to woman through our polite words and noble actions. From the Devi Mahatmya, this is from Deepak Gupta, BHU, Banaras Hindu University. Of course, Banaras is very special to us. There was no comparison to the radiance that emanated from the bodies of the deities. On gathering, she was transformed into a woman, and she seemed to pervade the three worlds with her light. I'll just share two more from the Ramayana Center, from Mauritius, from the Ramcharitamanas, then Sita, who was so good-natured and modest. She met Anasuya, sage Atri's wife, and she clasped her feet. And the sage's wife felt extremely gratified at heart, and she blessed her and seated her by her side. And this is from Sati Anasuya Katha, very beautiful Katha also. And then from New Delhi in India, Professor Dr. Shashibala. A woman is called Grihaswamini, the lady of the home, and she is to be honored. This is from Manusmriti. The houses in which female relations are not honored, they become cursed and they perish completely as if destroyed by magic. So there are many others. I can't read all of them, but so many wonderful verses. We are so happy to be working on this compilation. Every home should have it. It will be in the ebook format, so you can keep it on your phones. You can share it with others. And many persons like myself and others who are doing pravachan, who are katha vachaks, they will have a great resource of mantras, verses and quotations to use in kathas, especially during Navratri time. So, Ishi, how many pages did we reach? About 172, 73, yes, many pages. And we are also trying to use our own local photographs as much as possible with women and girls just involved in different activities. So I think we can allow 1 or 2 more days. If you do have something that you would like to submit, you can certainly contact us through the numbers on the Kendra's social media pages for any submission or unique photograph that you'd like to share. All credits will be given. And this is a project of the Hindu Prachaar Kendra, but I want to acknowledge Pandita Dr. Indrani Ramprasad for her resourcefulness and her ideas and for just helping us to put this whole book together. So look out for the formal launch for the Vasant Navratri that's coming up in just a month's time. I am very excited about this project. I guess it's because it's about woman, and well, I am a woman. And many of the verses and the teachings, I think the one we got submitted most is one we teach here again and again at the Kendra from the Manusmriti, Yatra Naryastu Pujante Ramante Tatra Devataha. Sums up very beautifully what we have shared for the entire morning in our session. Wherever women are honored, where they are cherished, where they are loved, where they are respected, it is there the Devatas will rejoice. They dance in joy. Boliye Jagadambe Mata Ki Jai. Har Har Mahadev. Let's stand for the arati. Please offer all the flowers and we'll close off our session. Oh Har Har Mahadev Gange Kashi Vishwanath Shambho. 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 Oh Har Har closing mantras, praying for everyone and everything. Om Durjano Sajano Bhuyat Sajana Shanti Mapnuyat Shanto Mucheta Bandhebhyo Muktas Chanyan Vimochayet Swasti Prajabhya Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahisha Go Brahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Om Dhyau Shantir Antarikshagum Shanti Prathivi Shantir Apaha Shantir Aushadhaya Shantir Vanaspataya Shantir Vishve Deva Shantir Brahma Shanti Sarvagum Shanti Shantireva Shanti Sama Shantiredhi Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Jag Pranam together. Siya Ram Mai Sab Jag Jani Karau Pranam Jodi Jug Pani Siya Ram Mai Sab Jag Jani Karau Pranam Jodi Jug Pani Jai Shri Ram बोलिए गजानन स्वामी की श्री कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान की जगदम्बे माता की उमापति महादेव की पवन सुत हनुमान की सियापति रामचंद्र की गोस्वामी तुलसीदास की ट्रिनिडाद और टोबैगो देश की बोलिए श्री सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय 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 सीताराम. Please take your seats, everyone present here, and if you were standing at home, you can take your seats. I know sometimes some of you actually stand with us. Some of you go to your Devasthan and you do Aarti. It's so wonderful to get this kind of feedback. And I am sorry when our Satsang keeps back your cooking because you stop cleaning your vegetables and so on, to clap and sing along with us. It's so wonderful to hear all of this. So I'm seeing my phone is blinking already here with people sending submissions. Please do. Suppose you may send something that's already there. It's not a problem, but as many verses as possible we'd like to get, and any unique, beautiful pictures you have of women folk doing different things for this wonderful book. We are really working a lot, working hard on it. Many persons. There are many others. I was just thinking, even our own High Commissioner to India, Dr. Raja Gopal, he sent so many quotations for us as well, many persons. So when we do the launch, we'll of course acknowledge everyone. And the wonderful name for this book, Sita, the Warrior Princess toward a new Smriti. Of course, this is something, the title, Sita the Warrior Princess, conceptualized by our own Raviji here at the Kendra, and for 3-4 years in Bal Ramdila, we would have our warrior princesses sitting here. She used to transform from that quiet Sita to Shakti Sita. Very beautiful concept. So all the information, like I said, will be there for the launch. We'll have a special program for that. So just to remind you, so many calls we are getting about Phagwa and Pichakari and what are we doing, how are we celebrating. This year, again, we are not able to really do much. We'll see for that weekend of Phagwa, we will have a special satsang for that. But please appreciate, we do have a lot of construction work going on around the compound and the premises here. So it's not conducive for having celebrations. Phagwa is also very contact oriented. Someone said, Geetaji, you don't have to play with the abir, the liquid. But even to use the gulal, you have to go and touch someone, right? And then someone said, well, throw it up. chircate, but then we won't be able to breathe. So many different things we have to consider, but we will organize one special morning, I think the following weekend, for a satsang for Holi. We'll see what we can put together, and after that, we look towards Navratri, Hanuman Jayanti, Sri Ram Navami. So much will be coming up. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you appreciate our sharing this morning. Take care of the women folk. Women, take care of other women. Men, take care of all the women folk, of yourselves. Let's all just take care of each other in the very best of ways. Have a very productive, blessed and safe week, and we'll see you all again for satsang next week Sunday. Namaskar.